Hello, and welcome to Insightful Conversations with your host, Three Principles practitioner, Adey-Jones. Join her each week as she welcomes some of the world's leading Three Principles teachers and practitioners who share how this understanding has dramatically improved the quality of their lives and the lives of those they work with.
I'm very excited to have Marty Lipsky with me today. Marty is one of the original students of Sydney Banks. During Sydney Banks' first formal public talk, early in 1975, Marty recognized that he was listening to an enlightened master. Hearing Sid's words resulted in an insight about insecurity that was the beginning of an understanding and an appreciation for the teachings of Sydney Banks that continues to deepen to this day. Hi, Marty. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm really excited for this conversation. And I know you were one of Sid's original students, so I'd love to go back in time and hear how you came across Sid and how it impacted you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course. We can always go all the way back to when I was born, but that's no good. Well, I was in Vancouver, and I met a draft dodger, and he turned me on to a Zen master who I studied with. There's a famous Zen master from Los Angeles. And I studied with that Zen master for a short period of time, and which was a very good experience. And this was the experience that led me to finding Sid. So one of the essences of the experience with the Zen master was that I kept looking for something. And I kept trying to add something to my personality and to my being. And of course, that didn't work, because as you found out and I found out, that what we're looking for is something we already have. Mm-hmm. So I was sitting in Vancouver and hanging out with some Zen friends and not doing too much and not very happy overall. And a friend came over for coffee and said, as he was leaving, he said, "Oh, by the way, I saw a poster on this light standard in Vancouver on a main street, and it had a picture of Sid, and it said, 'Come here, Sydney Banks, an enlightened man,' on Friday night in this hall that was run by these Sufi guys." Mm-hmm. And then, because I was familiar with Zen Buddhism, and because I had met this Zen master, and because I just had a whole feeling for the situation. Basically, the feeling was there really was something to find in life, that you'd be liberated, you'd be happy. And anyways, the word enlightenment jumped out at me. And sure enough, that Friday night, I went to this place, and I walked in this room, and Sid and Barb Banks, his first wife, were sitting up at the front. And there was two couples who were sitting right near me. And the thing was, Sid hadn't started talking, and I was looking up there, and he looked like a sort of ordinary fellow with a beard and nice-looking man, his wife, nice-looking lady, and these two people beside me were having so much fun. Like it was almost, as I said before to people, it was almost from a different planet. Mm-hmm. And also there was so much sort of like equality and respect between them and laughter. And I thought, like, this is something's going on here. This is like I at that time in Vancouver, I rarely saw anybody that happy, and I didn't see couples that happy. So, and then Sid started to talk, and he talked for quite a while, half an hour, 40 minutes. Can't remember anything he said exactly. But at the very end, he said, "Are there any questions?" And there's no questions except for one person, me. And I think the reason, Dell, it was from me, because my state of mind at the time, though probably not exactly the same as Sid's before his enlightenment, but my state of mind at the time was, I want something to change. I didn't know it was me that would, this is it. I didn't know what I was looking for I had, but I needed something. Like, there wasn't enough going on. I was only 30 years old, and I had a university degree, and I was sort of like treading water, and I wasn't that happy, and I really had a burning feeling to change. So sure enough, I thought, I'm going to ask him a question. What will I ask him here? Okay, why not ask him the essence of what I think is the issue for me? And if he can answer this, well, this will be something. And the question was, what about fear, doubt, and insecurity?
Mm-hmm.
And like, I had no idea that he had gone to Cold Mountain, and he had gone through this experience of exposing his insecurity to someone, and someone saying to him, that's crazy, you're not insecure, Sid. I had no idea that story. I knew my main factor was, I just didn't feel confident, didn't feel secure, didn't feel very happy, and all those things. So why not ask him? And I did. And he immediately said, in the echo of the enlightened man's confidence, he said, of course, insecurity and doubt and fear are nothing but thoughts carried through time. Mm-hmm. Yeah, which I'm sure you've heard before.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then, but this is his first public meeting ever. And he's in Vancouver, and he's got his brother-in-law, sister-in-law, his wife, and 2 couples. And they are, except for Bill and Linda Quiring, they are the first couples to really, other than the immediate family, to hear anything from Sid. And there they were having this fantastic time. And I'm not having a fantastic time. And the thing is, I knew it. That's, I think, really important in 3 principles of like honesty. If you're not feeling well, don't avoid it. Oh, forget that. Let it fade away like air, smell or something. But if you recognize it, you can sit in it and it'll go. And then, okay, so back to the story. He said, it's thoughts carried through time. And that very moment, I thought, geez. At first, it was like there's a book I once read. It said Keys to Wisdom. And it was like somebody gave me a key, turn it inside, unlock. Wow. And like, it was exactly what I needed. And it was like the way the mind works, in a way, explained to me like I had never quite heard before. It was like so common sense and so simply wise. And it really told me that, you know what? All the stuff I've been making up, the whole thing was being made up in my life. And to make it matters worse, whenever I'd get into repeat situations of insecurity, I'd bring up all my good stuff. I'm insecure. Like Elsie once told a story where it was said, where they, like every time they went to like a cocktail party or something like that, if there was professionals there, like a doctor or a lawyer, immediately, oh, I'm not that, so I don't have stuff. And they carry stuff through time, right? Yeah. So then the big thing for me is I lived a half an hour walk away, and I went home, and I was sitting in my kitchen, and then all of a sudden my that mind that was insecure just completely dropped off. And then the feeling I had was like everything was sacred. And as I've said before to other people, I all of a sudden I just I felt free, and I like freedom I had never felt before.
All of this in the first time
this is the point. This is the point here. Wow. I see Sidney Banks in his first meeting, and he tells me this answer to this one thing, and all of a sudden I feel this big, God, the whole thing's being made up. And then I feel free. I feel free. And then I go home, and now I don't know it, but I'm feeling free. And all of a sudden my mind drops away, which I guess people call ego or little mind, dropped away with all the problems and everything. And then it like seemed to me that the world was actually, the essence of the world was sacred. Like everything was special and everything, I felt grateful for everything that was around me. Reality, so beautiful. And I've said to people, I felt like if I went out in the street, I'd want to walk up to everybody and ask them if I could hug them, because it just felt so elated that it was so, that reality was so much better than I thought it was. This, so many times we've heard these stories from people in the 3P world, but that's the way it was for me at the time. So then about a month later, Sid comes back to Vancouver. Same wife, of course, same couples. And we're in the basement of a Quaker church. And the Quaker church is still there in Vancouver. And go down there, same thing again. These couples are having so much fun. Sid and Barb are having fun. I'm maybe having a little bit more fun now. I mean, Sid heard it all, right? I'm not saying that I heard it to a certain depth, to a certain, like I was like all of a sudden I got something to do here. I'm going to see Sidney Banks, an enlightened man. I'm sure he's an enlightened man. I'm absolutely, no question. This is an enlightened man. Mm-hmm. And I go into this Quaker church. It's the same thing again. Two couples having unbelievable amount of fun. Sid right in his element. The mind-blowing thing is, how the heck did this thing happen? Mm-hmm. Like there's structures in Zen Buddhism for 2,000 years. You know what I mean? Like, mm-hmm. and support systems and a tradition, a way to help people find Satori. Mm-hmm. But here's this welder with no support system, hardly anybody around. And like with a pretty strong Scottish accent, which is meaningless, except I had trouble hearing him. Mm-hmm. And like out of the blue, like I studied Zen to some degree on the outside. I knew the fact that first thing, enlightenment was very rare. Very few human beings in life. Well, billions and billions of people that have lived, very few people have achieved it. Sure. And very, very, very few people have achieved anything with no structure. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like, this doesn't happen. This is a rarity and like, I couldn't, it was mind blowing to me that this man was sitting in front of me. Like, and I knew he was enlightened. Mm-hmm. And I am so grateful. Here I found this guy and he's enlightened, and I'm sure he's enlightened. I think there's people out there maybe who want to ask the question, well, how does this guy know he's enlightened? Mm-hmm. Well, one deep answer would be because I'm enlightened inside too, that I recognize it, right? Like Sid says, you're sitting in enlightenment. But in another way, there's characteristics that he showed, which was a confidence beyond confidence, mm-hmm. and a wisdom, mm-hmm. and a common sense beyond ordinary common sense, like deep, and also a knowledge of how the mind works. Mm-hmm. Like this is not everyday stuff. Mm-hmm. Anyways, so skipping forward, I kind of knew. Mm-hmm. I kind of knew I didn't hear enough to know it myself, and I had to do something. And so a bunch of us, sort of, including my future wife, kind of seemed to find them together in that first meeting and by word of mouth. And we all went over to Salt Spring Island to hear him talk in a little hall there. Mm-hmm. And when I heard him that time, he had a Scottish accent, but I had a real busy mind.
Mhm.
And I could not even slow down enough to even hear him. Like I had to like squeeze my hand, everything, just to calm down enough. I was pretty excited. And 15 minutes later, all of a sudden, I'm hearing what he's saying. I could hardly even hear the words. And then, so I think I went over another time, and Sid and a best friend, turned out to be a best friend, picked me up at a place called Cedar Beach Resort, where we had meetings for a year or two. And they took me down to this house to meet his wife and his mother-in-law. And I got this welcome there. Like I'd never gotten a welcome like that in my life from people I didn't know. It was like a hug, and the warmth and feeling, but the enlightenment was permeating in the room, because his wife and his mother-in-law had really heard something.
Yeah.
It's so special, and the richness of greeting and everything was, that was really, really felt fantastic. They were so nice to me. And of course, Sid was nice, very beautiful, very friendly everywhere.
Now, did your wife, I know you weren't married at the time, but did she have the same impact as you?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We've had long discussions here. See, I think the thing with me is I had not any better than anyone's, but a unique path because I had been introduced to Zen Buddhism.
Mm-hmm.
That allowed me to come forward and say, this guy's, well, Sid knew this name, so he's had Satori.
Mm-hmm.
He's had awakening. He's had self-realization.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew that. And so she didn't have that. But somehow or another, my wife was also looking for something. And somehow or another, we gelled together and got to see each other. And somehow or another, I think she really felt there was something really positive about to happen on the island, and she wanted to be part of it. And for me, it was like, this enlightened guy's over there. And I better get my, over there and get involved and find out what he's really talking about. And the whole thing is, you could say God set me up, right? I was really set up for this. And then sure enough, not too long after that, I wasn't doing much. I moved to Salt Spring Island. And right about that time, my wife moved separately.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and we weren't a couple. And then what happened is the whole thing started to happen down at Sid's house.
Mm.
Everything happened at Sid's house. It all started to move and push out, and people getting attracted, coming and going. And I got to partake in that, and which is a very fortunate event. I mean, I needed to partake in it. I wanted it, I needed it, and I needed to there's so much opportunity to grow in the real spiritual world. That's the key to it. I mean, there's beautiful teachers today in the three principle world, without having to name anybody, have written multiple books and so on, and people love hanging out with them. Mm-hmm. And so on. And they have much to teach people, that's for sure. I found with Sid, I just didn't really have any resistance. The resistance, I think, as it morphed out slowly but surely in time, it kept changing, and it kept moving, and it kept being redefined. It went from the first words that we used were truth.
Yeah,
that was it, to find the truth. And it started in his house and generated in his house, and there's tons of people coming to his house all the time. And One time I was sitting on the lawn, and for the very first time, George Pransky showed up, which was interesting.
Yeah.
Different people.
Tell me about that.
Oh, yeah.
So
George Pransky.
You've basically been all of, prior to the psychologist getting involved, it was more just a sort of a spiritual path everybody was in. So I'd love to hear how you experienced the arrival of the psychologists.
Oh, that was interesting. You know, I think always Sid had a vision way farther than anybody. It was like listening to him just to hear what the vision was. It's not following him. You know, sun is sun and moon is moon and mountains are mountains. And if a guy's really deep and he's really got vision, he's got vision. And he had vision and he could see pretty much so that the route that this was going to go was to find people who already had customers, who already were sharing about like how you change your mind and all that, and how you stop suffering and solve things like marriage problems and all those kinds of things. And he pretty much could see that's what was going to happen. And he pretty much let us know that. And also things started to switch into psychology bit by bit. And like the people asked us questions, were the three principles taught at the beginning? Of course they were.
Yeah.
But they weren't taught in the form of three principles. Did he teach about God? Yes. Well, that's mind. Did he teach about levels of consciousness and awareness? That's consciousness. Did he talk about your changing your thinking, having deeper thought? So he did talk about all that. So the psychologist changed. I remember this story. So we're sitting out in this front lawn. Here's George. And we got about 20 of us around. Hot summer day, so beautiful. And none of us, we want to listen. We don't want to talk. We want to listen because there was so much to gain from it. George wanted to talk and question Sid. And like, I could see where it was going. And I kept in my mind going, George, don't go there. George, don't go there. And sure enough, George went there.
Yeah.
And I'm feeling I've got a laughter in me that is so huge, but because we all know not to go there. Don't use this. Don't try to figure it out. Just listen, and when you're ready, you will hear something. It's not blind faith; it's real faith. Something will happen. And then, no, George. Oh, don't go there, George. And then, sure enough, he went there. And then Sid was so kind all the time. That's, his kindness incorporated with anybody who had real problems to people who were just very intelligent but very intellectual. And he would help them too. He helped whatever was in front of him. He helped. Okay. So, and then, of course, the other big one was Roger Mills. He came and hung out for a while. And Roger loved the gang on Salt Spring Island, really loved them. He knew that the gang knew a little bit. Yeah, he knew that. He had a real sense of it. One of them was on the ferry with a friend of Sid's, Larry, and Larry was a plumber, very good plumber. And he'd just come from a plumbing job on another island. And I think Roger was on the ferry and Roger was on the ferry and Larry came on and they met. And within minutes, he could see that Larry knew more than he did about what life was really about. So things like that would happen. And they come on the island and picking it up. And they've told all their stories from all there and so on. And I'm not afraid to admit the fact that it's very easy. When your next door neighbor is a person who has experienced the essence of life, and as an ordinary man, and he's willing to share with you that if you've got any wisdom cooking in you at the time, that you're going to want to partake, and that now the psychologists are coming on the scene. And, now you're not at so many meetings, and they are very important.
Mm-hmm.
And we know, we have a sense. Yes, indeed, they are important. It's not going to become a thing where you have one man sitting there and hundreds of 500 or 1,000 people show up. Sure, there was meetings in the future, great meetings, 100 people, 150, 200 people.
Mm-hmm.
There was, my wife and me ran this Friday night session that happened in this resort, and everybody would come together. Usually Sid would come together and talk. And so we had a meeting every week, and then we had a meeting every month, and so on. And it kept getting bigger and ended up in small towns in the area. And I mean, it doesn't just go from Sydney Banks to 100 books written. Not like that.
Yeah.
It grows because it doesn't move without someone really hearing something.
Mm-hmm.
Intellectual won't move it very far. I mean, Dale, I had all the lots of, one time I was at a talk up in the town, and I was sitting by this guy, and Sid came up and sat down beside us. And he said something like, this is the back door. Sid was a way of telling you in the back door so you didn't feel insulted.
Yeah.
He tells a story. And the story was something like, oh, and this guy I was talking to was a real intellectual, and I was sort of like spiritual and intellectual.
Mm-hmm.
You start telling a story about meeting these people and so on, and he could clearly see that people who were really intellectual or had a past religious background would have trouble hearing this because they would compare it.
Yeah.
What Sid is saying. And, lots of people came in, compared their reality, what they knew, or challenged Sid, and then bounced off him and never came back.
Wow.
They weren't ready.
Yeah, I find that fascinating because I had actually been on a spiritual path for, almost 40 years, I'd say, before, 35 years before I came across the principles. And I'd been in therapy for about 28 years. And so for me, when I found the principles, it was like, oh my God, the search is over.
Yeah, exactly.
It wasn't that I was coming in and comparing. It was just like, oh my God, that hunger that I had for all those years, it was just like, oh my God, I get it.
It's such a relief, and it's so beautiful. It's first thing, it's beautiful that you found it.
Mm-hmm.
You're very fortunate.
Yeah.
It's not that anybody's saying you're better or anything compared to others. It's just the path that's available you found. And that's so beautiful. Yeah. Sid was always giving tips.
Mm-hmm.
Wee little tips all the time, one after another, after another, after another. And those tips would help you, maybe help you, And lots of times, I don't want people to get this wrong, but lots of times there's states where you don't grow.
Mm-hmm.
And one should know you can be very excited and very enthusiastic, but you not necessarily grow.
Mm-hmm.
Sid called it one time as a conference, and he gave a big talk, and after he came down from the stage and beat it over to me. And comes over to me and asked me how I thought the things were. And of course I said, great and all that, of course. And I thought it was great. He said, well, Marty, I'm pretty sure everybody here got a boost, a big boost, but probably not many really heard something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that's because my experience is that, when you hear something, it's really something you're familiar, but you didn't know it. Mm-hmm. But it definitely relieves you. Now you're not carrying that burden of some thinking of some sort. So Sid called it, scratches on your glasses.
Sure.
Yeah. So then, whoa.
I know we're coming up to the end of our time together.
Oh, you got to be kidding.
No, I could
maybe the last thing I can say is that one time I spent quite a bit of time with Sid, and the experience that came out of it gave me a little vision. And that little vision was that there was something inside me that was far beyond anything I had ever imagined. And it had tremendous energy and feeling to it. And that it was what in a sense I'd been looking for forever. And I realized that was the key to it all, and that it was available to everyone. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you know, the three principle is absolutely a wonderful path. And as Sid said, not only is it a destination, but he said it will take people there. It's absolutely no question that the three principles takes people there where they want to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 100%. I mean, clearly you were a seeker before you came across it, and so was I. And it's a destination. It's like I don't have that feeling of there's something more out there I need to get. I'm just so incredibly grateful and happy, and if I see a little bit more, fabulous, but I don't feel I have a need to even see any more.
Yeah, you can deepen it. That's the beauty of it. There's no end to learning. Exactly. I mean, I went I told people in the first 2 years on Salt Spring, it felt compared to before like I lived 10 years. And then there was other parts of my life I don't think I lived very much. But then it's still available. And then all of a sudden, if you're open, you can have an insight and you go, oh, geez. Sort of like you're back on the horse again, Yeah. I really appreciate you getting in touch with me. Oh. It's a very unique, like I've done one webinar, and I've been asked many times to do a webinar, and I felt, when I have an insight or something like that, I really have insight, something very strong, and help people. Then maybe I'll talk a bit, and then things have been happening lately, and I turned 75, and I thought, if not now, when? Better do something. Yes, I'm very grateful you got in touch with me.
Yeah, me too. And David Banks said amazing things about you, and he's like, you've got to talk to Marty. So he put us in touch. Very grateful to him for that.
He's someone who's I've kept in touch with, or been friends for a long time.
Well, thank you again, and it's great talking to you, great meeting you, and hopefully when we all start moving around again, I might meet you in person.
Yeah, that would be really nice. Mm-hmm. And I see you're going to be in Viva, so maybe I'll hear you online.
Yes, at Viva, and I've been up to Salt Spring a couple of times now to visit. So hopefully next year we'll be able to visit again. And so.
Oh yeah, that's a great trip to go to the Three Principal School.
It is. I know. I love it.
Yeah, you really have in for a beautiful experience. Mm-hmm. I hope it does happen. We don't have anything getting any sicknesses or anything getting in the way.
Yeah. Well, again, thank you so much, and have a wonderful rest of your day.
You too, dear. Thank you so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you're interested in learning more about my coaching and mentoring packages, please reach out to me at Adey-Jones@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you.